Okay. Welcome everyone to our Gift of Health weekly wellness chat. I'm Dr. Arjun Rayapudi, and this is my lovely wife, Dr. Shobha Rayapudi. We're so excited that you're here, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Mitika Kanabar. She's an addiction um, specialist. She's a board certified physician.
Yeah. So I would say it's a double whammy because she is not only a board certified lifestyle medicine doctor, but also addiction medicine specialist, which is a rare combination to find. So, like every week, we bring speakers, guests, and people like who talk about lifestyle medicine on various topics. And today we are really excited that we are talking on a very less conversed topic like
Yes.
addiction medicine. So
Welcome,
welcome,
Mitika.
Mitika.
We are so glad you joined us today, and
Yeah, and let me introduce Mitika. Like Mitika is not only a dear friend of mine. She, as I said, she is an addiction medicine specialist, and right now, currently, she is residing in California in Lancaster. So she is also a volunteer faculty member in University of Southern California, and she's also board member of International Society of Addiction Medicine. And I know she's into a lot of things, so I'll just let Mitika tell you and introduce. So thank you, Mitika. We are so excited you're here.
Thank you so much, Shobha and Arjun, both the Dr. Rayapudi. It's very nice that you're doing this effort to talk about lifestyle medicine. And this is so needed in today's day and age. And thank you very much for the opportunity and the warm welcome. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a family physician, so board certified in family medicine. Then I did my addiction medicine fellowship at Stanford. And then while working in addiction medicine, I came across this whole concept of lifestyle medicine and just got board certified in that. And since then, it's just a wonderful set of skills to have. I do serve as a committee member for ISAM, that's in International Society of Addiction Medicine, for their next generation. So how do we mentor more people to come into this field, because it's so needed to have a good education and understanding of that. And I also try to help out with the local California Society of Addiction Medicine in my free time. I think that's as much I can say right now.
well,
Yeah. So, Mithika, what actually got you interested in addiction medicine?
That's a nice question, Shobha. So basically, when I was doing my family medicine residency in Minnesota, I was working at a safety net hospital. So this is where people who don't have medical care or have very little access to medical care, they would come to us and we would help them. And one of the issues that I would see continuously is like, with problems with alcohol or substance use. And I had a very interesting introduction to the field of addiction medicine. In the morning, you go as residents, you get the sign out, hey, these are the patients assigned to you, go talk to them. And I got a curious sign out saying that, hopefully the patient is able to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. I'm just an intern. I started 2 months ago. We'll see what happens. And I went there, and the patient was already talking to somebody and in a very, very good mood already, because I don't know what the conversation was, but she was very grateful, like she got help. And so once that other doctor left the room, I kind of said, "Excuse me, I'll come back in a minute." And I ran after her. I'm like, "Who are you? And what did you say to my patient?" So she's like, "No, I'm the addiction doctor. I told her, that we have all of these resources just across the street, and this is how we will take care of you." And that's pretty much all that she needed to hear. And so I'm like, well, I'm interested. How can I learn more? And she's like, well, next year when you have electives, come do an elective with us. So as a part of my elective, I've worked with the addiction medicine team. I was also able to go to like rural Minnesota. So like you leave the city, you go down south, you go between apple orchards, and then you will see a small hospital over there. And I got to interact with patients suffering from substance use disorder over there, and they were so happy to have this access. And there was so much of a need that it was important to get addressed. So, like that, slowly, I also had some time at Hazelden, which is one of the nicer institutions to get addiction care. And I did an elective over there. And then I said, okay, let's apply. So I guess I got in and enjoyed my fellowship very well.
That's actually very interesting because not many of us show interest in addiction medicine. So Mitika, like how how would you describe addiction?
And what kind
So,
of addictions are you seeing these days? And like, I know addict when we talk about addiction, many people think of substance abuse. Uh, like we would like to hear from you. What is that? What type of addictions are you mostly dealing with in your practice?
absolutely. So, addiction, as if you take the ASAM, that is American Society of Addiction Medicine, their definition is a chronic relapsing remitting disease of the brain, where there's a cycle of use, then withdrawal, then use again, which kind of pervades all the areas of your life. And we treat it as same as we would treat diabetes or hypertension or like any other chronic disease. And there's treatment available, help available, which is pretty good now. So we have come very far from back in like the 40s and 50s when this sort of movement started. We have so many options to help patients. And that's kind of the model that we go with and provide care. Now, what kind of addiction? So yes, substance use disorders are the majority of what I do in my clinical practice. So that can be alcohol, opioids, tobacco, of course, marijuana, any substance of your use. We try to help our patients the best that we can. The other things that I do see, which is also kind of a passion of mine, is to look into behavioral addictions. So behavioral addictions are not associated with any substance. It's kind of like our behaviors that kind of keep going despite like having no like so thing that you are ingesting in your body, whether it is using your phones, whether it is using your internet, whether it is compulsive buying and shopping online, or dating, or gambling. So these are all come under behavioral addictions, and that is a very small percent of practice because people don't know that there is help available for that.
Interesting. As you said, yes, like we have heard about like substance addiction, but rarely do we hear about behavioral addiction where like a lot of us find ourselves in that behavioral addiction mode though. Yeah. So Mitika, for our viewers, would you be able to explain addiction in terms of, I know like you described in terms of like getting into substance and then having the withdrawal phase. So like how does it happen? Like how does it start in the first place?
So, first to start with is like, you maybe want to try something. You are a teenager, maybe you are 20, maybe you're in college, maybe you are 35. I've heard all of these stories. Okay. And somebody tells you, hey, you should try out this smoke, or try some jewel. That is more hep nowadays. My patients, the younger patients, tell me, doc, we don't smoke cigarettes anymore. So yeah, try this out. It will take your stress away, and nothing is going to happen. I can leave it at any time. And for whatever reason, you give it a try. So for a lot of people, they can try and leave, but there are people who have like a genetic predisposition or environmental factors. They end up using it more often. So what happens initially when you are doing it, you are thinking about it and using it, saying that, okay, I'll just give it a try once. But at some point that line crosses, it kind of just bypasses what we call the frontal cortex. It just almost becomes like a habit. And then when you start seeing more consequences is when we start calling it an addiction. So this is to put it very simply.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So for our viewers, like our Gift of Health work at Gift of Health, we are helping people to use all the pillars of lifestyle medicine to basically get off medication treadmill, reverse chronic disease, lose weight, and keep it off. And uh, so we are using like a food as medicine as one approach. We have a 6-week program with that, and lots of success stories uh, of people coming off of medications, reversing chronic disease with that. And then we have a longer program, like a 6-month program for people who have done the food as medicine program and want to focus on other pillars of lifestyle medicine, like exercise, stress management, and making sustainable connections, and
Sleep.
sleep, having healthy sleep, and also avoiding harmful substances. So, what we are finding with our viewers and our followers is not so much of like smoking, like alcohol, like, hey, anybody listening, if you're doing that, no, yes, we can talk more about it. But we want to keep this topic very relevant to our listeners. Like, we find what we're dealing with is either food addiction is one thing, and technology addiction, I would say, which like you sum them pretty much as behavioral addictions, right? Like these are the two main things that we're observing. So how do you approach, like, with people who are struggling with techno? Should we focus on the food first and the technology, or what do you think?
I know both of these are broad topics. Today, why not we focus on the technology addiction? Because this is something most of us find ourselves.
Yeah,
And
and the thing is, this is technology addiction is also less talked about, isn't it?
yes, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm happy to kind of speak a little bit on, you touched on a few different topics. So I would like to kind of reframe it and then go from
Sure. Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, it's wonderful that you're doing the 6-week and 6-month challenge. I mean, from a patient perspective, amazing to have that resource. Okay. And for the 6-month challenge, I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys
Yeah,
have a lot
it's
of
a lot of work.
patience.
6-month program. Like, we're meeting with this group almost on a weekly basis, and like one task after the other.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
It takes a sheer amount of dedication to do service to be able to do 6-month challenge. So thank you for doing that. So you talked about how the pillars of lifestyle medicine are there. So, just to talk about that. So it's about nutrition, exercise, sleep, relationship, stress management, and substance use. These are the pillars of lifestyle medicine. Now, to talk about it from the addiction medicine angle, like this is what happened when I looked at like the lifestyle medicine curriculum. I'm like, other than some stuff, extra stuff about like food, this is pretty much addiction medicine for me, because this is what we do. When we see a patient, we look at the biopsychosocial evaluation, and that is how we decide on the treatment plan. So the biopsychosocial includes sleep, it includes exercise, it includes like relationships in the sense of setting boundaries, and of course substance use. That is what the bread and butter that we do. So just wanted to say, compare and contrast the two fields
Mm.
and how the two can meet at quite a few different points. Now, as far as substance use is concerned, how do we look at disordered eating patterns? So once you leave a substance, whatever that may be, you might find either too much of a tendency or too little of a tendency to eat. So you might get the munchies on leaving, or you might feel like, oh my God, I can't even eat when you stop using a substance. So you could go either ways. And that we help from a lens of eating disorder. We don't think about it officially as like a food addiction in some kind. So what generally gets referred to food addiction is what we call a binge eating disorder. It may be a real binge eating disorder, or like eating disorder NOS, as in not otherwise specified. So we look at that, we help the patient with that. And then more than that, we there are so many places that we can refer them to get help for their eating disorders. So that is one. Now let's talk about technology. I think technology addiction or technology overuse officially is still just an overuse. It's not qualified as an addiction yet. Is really up and coming. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. So what is going around in the world right now? So as a part of my work with ISAM, what we are seeing is that this year, because of a push from the WHO, that is the World Health Organization, they're going to make gambling disorder a part of ICD-11. So for people who don't know, International Classification of Disease is like the diagnosis we put when we see a patient, we put the diagnosis in the code, and that's what it shows on your chart. So they are doing a new version of that, and they are going to put gambling disorder as a part of that. So gambling disorder is only like 0.5% of the US population. So it's a small quotient. But if you think about it from an older standpoint, gambling used to be you have to go to the casino, lose all your money and then come back home. But now you have it readily available on your phone. And I'm not seeing that much of it in the US, but I know in the UK it's become quite a real problem having all of these apps available constantly. And what I hear in Asia, especially in India, also they are coming up with apps that you can gamble online. So we are only seeing a small bit, but with the technology advances, unfortunately, we are going to see more. So it's coming at the right time. And so from that, even just for a small part of our behavioral addictions, we have to understand how different countries are going to react, what are the training opportunities, what are the treatment opportunities, everything. So that is a small thing. So now technology addiction. So technology addiction technically is not an addiction because, okay, you are using your phone 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. You're not going to maybe lose your life, lose your job, or the other things that you will see, like say you're overusing alcohol or other things. So you're not going to see as severe consequences. So that is kind of where a little bit of the thing is saying. So officially it's still as a problematic internet use or technology overuse. This is how they are doing. But all over, wherever I have talked about technology addiction or technology overuse, I say, let's do a show of hands. Who do you, who thinks that they are hooked to their phones? And like, more than half of the room will have their hands up. So this is kind of the other way around. Everybody's saying, yeah, we are hooked to our phones, but the psychiatric and the theoretical framework that needs to be put together for us to be officially be able to diagnose it as an addiction is not there yet. That may take another 5 or 10 years in the coming. Now, from my perspective, it may take 10 years to see whether, there's a MRI study. These are the what other researchers that are going with this. In that time, for the next 10 years, how do we live our lives well? So that is from where I do most of my work in behavioral addictions.
So, does the age matter, Mitika? So I know, like nowadays, if you see, like we can see a 6-month-old child, even less, I would say, like months baby, even from a 2-month-old baby to like almost an 80-year-old, like using technology or addicted to either the phone or the iPads or like whatever technology that we are using nowadays. And it has become so common. So, is there a difference, like when we are exposed? So, let's say if we are exposed below a certain age, does it matter?
Absolutely. I think you guys did your homework very well. Yes, it matters. So, those of us who got computers, say back in the 90s. So back then is when the original reporting of all of this started. There's a landmark paper that came out in the 90s saying how children are loving to be online and they like their computers too much. And then after 2007, around the Blackberries going out, iPhones coming in, that's when we saw more and more of that emerging because it was even more accessible. You don't have to be home in front of your PC. So what the way I like to see it is like we went through school, we went through college, it's not like you can pay attention all the time anyways. We are used to doodling, we are used to doing other things to cope with the distress of how long is this lecture going on, am I going to do. So we have those coping skills already wired in. But what about the 2 month old? What about the 6 month old? They have not made those brain connections yet. Like, okay, if I am, uh, I'm distressed about something, what will I do? Maybe these are the ways, how we learn as new parents is like either, baby's crying, is hungry, it's change the diaper, it is, uh, you know, feed the baby, something or the other, needs a hug, like that. So we go through our things. This is what I'm going to do. So now, from the baby's perspective, like, oh, I'm upset. Well, maybe I'll just watch the screen a little bit more before I think about crying. And from what one of the things that you brought up is very true. Okay, there is, when you look at like forums for women like who are pregnant or delivered, there is always this kind of a race between which set of grandparents is going to be the one who gives the iPad first. And we are, as a culture, we are promoting that, but at the same time we are not promoting, hey, what is your screen hygiene? So we need to equip new parents with both the sides. Okay. So one of the days I went shopping for like kids clothes, and I'm like, I don't know, something is wrong with this shop, I don't know what it is. And by the time I was standing in line, I realized what it was. Like, there was not a sound, there was no baby screaming, and there were kids in the store. Okay, they were just in their strollers with computers on. So from that aspect, first of all, is coping skills. Second thing is, a part of the development is looking at mom or dad's facial expressions, mirroring that, learning language. So we are seeing more speech delays, we are seeing decreased coping skills, we are seeing eyesight problems. So there was a study done by UCSF a few years back. So they had this: how far is the screen from the baby's face? They will get spectacles sooner in life. So there are so many areas that we are missing out. So one of the core things about lifestyle medicine that I would like to emphasize is that recommendation of daily exercise. So we say that children should have 1 hour of rigorous physical activity in a day. Now I understand, you can live in very cold regions 6 months of the year. That option of going outside is not there. I understand that it is very difficult to be a parent in that situation with low resources. But the other 6 months, are you actually giving that 1 hour of active exercise? So that exercising is going down, and the kids are feeling kind of restless. They want to be exercising, moving those joints, and then they start being a little bit less attentive. So like inattention is growing in younger and younger children. That is what we can see. And the other part of exercise is, if you again look at more of the lifestyle medicine literature, is that more exercise means more brain development. You're better cognitively. So are we kind of undoing our brain development by being too much hooked to the screens? And that we need to have much more studies to see it over time in a cohort fashion to see where that is going.
Wow, like interesting. Uh, like you touched upon so many points, Mitika, and like if we look at addiction, of course, you said like these are the consequences, but are there any fatal consequences to addiction, and should we like really pay attention? Like uh, like when we talk about diseases, like whether it is diabetes, heart disease, like we say to patients like this is deadly disease. If you're not paying attention, like either you're going to die, or but like what about addictions? Like what are the consequences of addiction?
So very good question, Shobha. So like, we know, why is addiction in the news? Let's just go back to like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Like, addiction medicine wasn't even a recognized field by ABMS, and then they came and recognized. So why did that happen? That happened because of a series of really bad events. So back when all these opioid pushing was going on, then we started seeing these deaths. So direct consequence of addiction is overdose and unfortunately death. Okay, so that is like obvious. Everybody knows about it. It's all over the media, correct? So some of the indirect consequences. So like with alcohol use or substance use, unfortunately, when there are consequences, is that's when people seek help. So they may have a DUI, they may lose their job, they may lose their family, they may have a divorce, they may have a DCFS, that is a child protective case against them. That is when they seek help. Okay, and then the lower down list of consequences is going to be medical consequences. If you are injecting substances, you have a higher risk of having, heart infections and needing a lot of medication to get better. You can have liver problems with alcohol use. I think that is very well known. Smoking and lung cancer is very well known, but what is not known is smoking can also cause cancer of the larynx, cancer of the esophagus, cancer of the stomach, and cancer of the bladder. Okay, so like that with alcohol, it's very less known that even alcohol predisposes you to cancer of the oral and the GI tract. And so for those are just I'm just giving you the very top highlights, bullet points, but there are so many others that happen on the way.
So, what do you see, Mitika, like about the addiction to technology or overuse of technology? What effects are you seeing? Like, we all of us experience it, like, but some of us may not be even aware of it that it's actually a thing. One of our viewers commented, "Do you consider food addiction a real thing?" I've heard Oprah talk about it in the past.
Like I said, there is some work being done in UCSF in particular, like thinking about food as an addiction. And even, of course, the food addiction scale was devised by Yale. But food as an addiction has not yet come into my field as such in addiction medicine. We are still going by the psychiatric concept of binge eating disorder or eating disorder or anorexia, bulimia, and those. Um, will it come? Yes, we'll have to see what the data shows, and it should be proven. We have to do what is evidence based, and that is why it is okay to say, I'm here to help you. This is what we know best right now, and this is the standard of care that you should be getting.
So coming to the zeroing on the technology overusage part, like what are the downside of it?
Many things, right? So I covered a little bit on like the 0 to 5 age group. Okay, so from 5 to 10, what I hear generally from parents is that early adoption of like getting too much involved in games. Like my son is too much in games. He's playing XYZ games 10 hours a day, not doing any schoolwork, right? Or like, my kids are growing up too fast. That is all of us at some point or the other we feel, because they just are bombarded with so much information that we probably would have received later in life. So that is a more subtle thing. Again, more lack of attention, less coping skills. Okay, then 10 to 15 you will see more of, you know early adoption of social media. So they don't leave all of the school stuff at school. They're coming home and still doing the same thing. They are commenting on each other's like fake Facebook profiles and having extra phones and all of this teenage angst coming out in different ways. And as they grow older, we are seeing more social media, either more social media addiction, Instagram, Facebook, 10, 12 hours a day, or we are seeing like gaming addiction, which of course is getting recognized now. So gaming disorder, and that unfortunately had a lot of bad consequences in the Indian subcontinent. If you were aware of the news a couple years ago, there were a couple of games that were really tough for children to stay away from. So from that age group, and then 16 plus, like they want to go into colleges, and this is all of this, and they have these extracurricular activities. So they, even if the children or the teenagers don't want to be on the screens, all of their network, whether it's swimming practice, soccer practice, the XYZ, they have to constantly interact with these devices, because we decided, hey, having a group on WhatsApp or something is going to be good. But then managing that WhatsApp group became its own problem, right? And then like college age, people are being more and more vocal online without realizing, like, the internet is forever. So how is it impacting their college admissions? How is it impacting their resume building? How is it impacting their recruitment? And that is going to slowly come out with that. And then with adults, of course, we know a lot. With adults, we can keep going.
I
Yeah,
mean, like,
let's look into that. Like with
yeah,
adults, like
adults.
what kind of effects? Because technology is something, it's so benign. We just accept it. Hey, this is a normal thing to use, to be on our phones and be on our iPads and for an extended period of time. So what is the downside of it? What are we missing out on when we do it? What's that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me also give you some good parts of it. I'm a big fan of technology. I have to say, I love getting directions and maps. I think that has changed my life. I wouldn't be driving half as much as I do it if I didn't have good maps. Okay, and even how we practice medicine, amazing changes. Especially what happened last year with COVID-19. Amazing how we all pivoted. We started giving virtual care, lot of things, even government services. So truly, truly grateful to have technology in our lives. Okay.
Hmm.
The small downsides, I would say the number one downside I see in adults is sleep.
Mm.
I just have this feeling whoever solves the sleep problem is going to be the next big, celebrity in the world.
That's a huge problem, right? Like
That's so
lack of
true.
sleep
Yeah.
is how lack of sleep or inadequate sleep is connected to almost every pillar of lifestyle medicine.
So sleep, especially blue light exposure at nighttime, not getting adequate sleep. Even if you get adequate sleep, if your number of hours are okay, are you getting good quality sleep? Now that is a different battle altogether. So sleep is number one affected. If I'm too busy, what they call doom scrolling on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, am I actually getting up and going out to take my walk? Am I actually doing the things that I need to be doing to maintain my health? No. Okay, so we are missing out on these things in life. And then other things, of course, less interaction with family time. This is what I hear. Like, I come home, I have two jobs or one job, a very demanding job. I come home and I want to watch TV for 2 hours. I know my kids also want, so I give them their own iPad. So that is my me time. This is the most common thing I hear. This is my me time. So we have in a way been convinced by media or convinced ourselves that me time means being online. I think that me time used to mean something else before. And how do we reorganize that me time? And what are this socioeconomic considerations that go into all of this? Like, okay, if I want to have real me time, do I have somebody to watch my kids or take care of my elderly parents? And that sometimes is the limiting factor, unfortunately. Correct. And then one of the other experiences was like, say I don't want to give my kids the iPad or thing in the evening, but I did not set this boundary early on. And now the kid is 15. Now, what can I do? Right now, they are almost adults. They are almost out of the house. So we maintain whatever piece that I can. And the other thing I saw, which was very interesting, is like, going to daycares, right? You are interviewing the daycare as much as they are interviewing you. And some of like these daycares would have screens in their locations, and oh, we are only giving some interactive thing. It is ABC something or the other, or we only play some rhymes or whatever. So the kids are constantly exposed to those things at the care facility. And when you come home and you don't give it to them, there's a little bit difference in the messages that the poor kids are receiving. So there are so many factors that go in. But yes, definitely sleep, exercise, relationships are very, very much hit because you are not getting that FaceTime, like real FaceTime, not the application. Okay, face to face time, interaction, learning, developing languages, learning some hands-on skill, using your hands, doing physical exercise outside, or even like making a house of cards. How many of us are making a house of cards at home these days? Right. So, what can we do to bring some of that back? So, the idea is not going to be, hey, I'm going to be completely absent. I'm going to throw my phone aside. Uh, no, technology helps us. So we have to recognize that. So, how can we reduce the harm? So, my goal is always, whenever I talk to people, is about harm reduction. How can we slowly cut down in a way that is sustainable?
So how do you do that? Do you have any
Well,
tips, like for our viewers, like if they want to, um, you know, if
Cut
they
down.
cut down on the technology uses and use it in a way that is meaningful. You don't want to lose the benefits, as you said. Like, we all love technology. It has made our lives so much better, but it's the uh, sometimes we feel like it's the technology running our lives rather than we running the technology.
Absolutely. Right. So I want to preface this with this concept. There's an ancient Indian proverb that says, up till the age of 5, give the child all the love. From 5 to 15, give them, discipline. And from 16 onwards, they are just your peers. So you have to know where in this stage, if you are a parent, where in this stage are you? Okay, before you decide anything. So um, for younger kids, yes, you can have a discussion with your partner, spouse, whoever, to say what is our media policy going to be. This is what we are deciding as a family for the next X years. This is the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendation, who recommend less than 2 hours of screen time, right? They should not exceed more than 2 hours. For children below 2 years, no screen time at all. So these are the recommendations. They keep changing. So keep up to date. Ask your pediatrician the questions when you go see them for the well child check or for your school forms or whatever that may be. Have that conversation as a family early on, right? So that you are setting that boundary early on in life.
I like what you said. What is our media policy going to be as a family? Like something to talk about. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because, it cannot be like, you can theoretically, everybody wants to say, right, my house, my rules, or my way or the highway, but that is not how you nurture and nourish a family. So it needs to be kind of a two-way street. So uh, so for that is for people with children. Okay, for people who want to just cut down for their own sake. Hey, I find the things that you'd rather do in your time, then you work your way backwards from there. Like, what is your why? If you don't have a why to what you're doing, it's just this, oh, I heard something online on Dr. Rayapudi's lecture, I should cut down my screen time, so I should. No, it's not going to work too far. It needs to be, what is your take on it? So it is a little bit of introspection. It could be, I want to catch up with my running. I'm not running anymore. I want to catch up with my I want just some gardening time, whatever that is, season appropriate, time of your life appropriate. What resources are there for you appropriate from those aspects? Okay, it should be something like that. Find your why and then work your way backwards. Okay, so what is my screen time right now? What is my baseline? What is my target? How do I step down to it? And then there are some very easy tips that I could give. One of them would be, first 15 minutes of your day, try to not touch your phone. Try this for a week and see how from your baseline screen time your time goes down. So that would be one. um, Create boundaries. If we are at the table, nobody has phones. We dine as a family. You may not be even able to dine as a family, but create that boundary. There's no TV on, because sometimes I get patients, in my primary care practice, it's like, no, we all have our own devices, plus the TV is on for the grandparents. So there's a lot of chaos going just at the dining room table, which is sounds from their devices, not people talking to each other. So figure out what that is. Of course, say, one of the things I end up using my screen time for is watching recipes, especially whole food plant-based recipes. I'm like, I like to be geeky about them. So what is my plan going to be? So I realized, instead of keeping on reminding and watching the recipes, I should probably write them down. And so finding where you could cut back few minutes, shave back a few minutes. And what do I do with those minutes? Have a plan for the minutes saved, almost like a budget. This is my screen budget for the day. Another quick thing would be, like, if you're a big social media person, try to follow a lot of diverse interests, not the same thing over and over again. In social media, you will see a lot of people having, they have a flag that they're bearing and they keep talking about it all the time. So have like more gentler things also in your feeds, which are more calm. Because social media, in my mind, is like, you are on there, you feel like you're fighting a battle, but you are literally just sitting or lying down. So it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be triggering in that way. So these are very few tips to begin with.
Like, those are wonderful tips, Smithika. And like, what we mostly find is screen time is more lucrative, more engaging than doing other things. Like, how do we I know, like, in one of the conversations we are was happening, I really loved the way you actually explained about tobacco addiction, like where you were describing, like when we are taking the tobacco in first 20 seconds, it's giving that hit. Like when we are stressed, we are relaxed, and if we are sleepy, it wakes us up. So that is so addictive. And the same thing with the screen, the amount of I would say the engagement or the pleasure that it gives, opposed to other activities that we are choosing, like whether it's doing our exercise, whether it's doing our house chores, or that seems so boring. Like how like how so what is there that we can detach from this excitement and go over this phase? Because that's the hard part I feel that most of us face.
Absolutely. And there's a reason you feel that way, because these products, okay, whatever the app it is that you're using, whether it is X, Y, or Z social media app, they are designed for one purpose in mind. It is to make the founders money. Okay. So they have whittled it down to a really cool science that is holding our attention that cool. So honor that fact. I'm like, seriously, these people are geniuses. They are, right? And then what happens? So this is a curious thing. So what happens initially is like you get a notification. So and so typed something on WhatsApp or on Facebook, or somebody tagged you on a photo on Facebook. That is your trigger to go in and check what happened on Facebook. I'm not sure. So then you will see, then in that part, you start scrolling, you'll send three, four other comments to other people, right? And then you're waiting for the likes from these other people, whether it is 2 in the morning your time and it is 12 in the afternoon their time. It doesn't matter. We are waiting for the likes. This is just human tendency. We like to be liked, right? And that kind of sets up this cycle of using. Now, then later on, as the years progress, which we have lived ourselves, is that then I have disabled all of my notifications, right? I have disabled my notifications long time ago. I will still go and check, periodically, because it is an internal trigger. Why am I opening? And for different people, I hear different answers. Why do you open the phone without having any notifications on email? It is one, I'm feeling distressed about something. I have had this weird email at work. I'm a little stressed out about it. So instead of answering that email right now, I'm going to procrastinate and start scrolling on social media. That is one. The other part is that I'm sitting down to do something and I thought of something that I needed to Google. And I picked up my phone and I got diverted. So, can we hold off on that Googling? So, this has to be an active conversation going on in your mind, and it takes a lot of practice to put it in there. And then another part of it is this responsibility. We are all part of different WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, you name it. And say somebody posts a question, you feel like it is your responsibility as a person who has the answers to go and give it right away, right? Is anybody actually waiting on the other side of the room wanting that answer right now? Probably not. But it's just this, we like to be nice and we like to help other people, and a lot of it even comes from that.
That is so true. And you also brought up a very important point, Mithika. So I know, like, we are talking about kids, like how we want them to behave, but this is something they pick from us, like from adults. Uh, as you said, like, we are using technology for our work purposes and everything, and that is what they are seeing us do. And when we instruct them, okay, you're not supposed to use technology, you're not supposed to use your phone, then they just say, like, what are you doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, yes, you have to modulate your technology use for the children or the others in the family to follow suit. You have to be the leader. You have the opportunity to be the leader in setting your family screen use policy, and you have to take it from there. There is no easy way of I can still see my screen and everybody else can be abstinent in my on my behalf. There's no way to have the cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
So, one of the studies I read was very interesting. It said that for 4 to 5 year old kids, if the caregiver is using extra screens, like a lot of time on the screens, the children also end up using screens for extra time. And all of them have late sleep schedules and sleep lesser than kids who do not, or caregivers who do not. So, without even knowing, as caregivers, if we are using extra screens, everybody's bedtime in the family is going to get delayed.
Mm.
That is so powerful. Like we don't recognize sometimes that what we do affects everyone in the family. Like at the sometimes it's just that we don't recognize that how even our technology usage affects uh, other family members' technology usage.
Yeah. And I would say we have come to the point where we have actually run out of ideas like what to do. Like if you're thinking of spending family time together, it's like watching TV together or watching movie together. So like technology is everywhere, like whether we want to have good time or we want to do anything, like it is like almost like I would say imbibed in our lives. And like I would say, yes, I mean, there are things that we can do. And like some of the things, like it was funny, like when we moved to Canada, like from US, like we found ourselves having a lot of time, like a lot of family time. And initially oh my God, what are we going to do with this so much time? This is so much time, because like we were so used to like work and like have a stressful situation. And it was during that time it really hit us hard, like yes, like what are we going to do with the family time? So
It's not just the family time in general. Like there are a lot of people who are really working very hard to make ends meet. Respect them, but there are also other set of people who, like for a many in this group, uh, they have extra time.
yes.
Like because the time is something that um, because you work for 8 hours, and then most of the food and the chores, these are all like taking 1 or 2 hours, and then the kids, if the kids are grown up, and then you have so much time. uh, you sleep 8 hours, but at least there is another 6 to 8 hours of time. Don't know what to do with it unless you have a thought of it, as you said, thinking of like a budgeting your time, and screening, also including the screen budget in that.
Yeah, but more than that, I would think is like unless we have ideas what to replace it with, it would be very difficult. Like a few things that we do is like we play board games. So like actually board games are every in the nook and corner of our house, because even like when it's visible, like you're more inclined to, rather than like when it is just hiding in a closet.
Yeah.
So like even like we have board games where even when people come, like people visit us, they are interested. Oh, what is this game? Like this looks interesting, I have never seen that. And like we have a big collection of board games. So and even like when kids come to our house, they find it interesting. And where the it's very the other thing is it's very easy for us to control our kids saying like no screen time, but like when the other kids are coming with the screen, it's very difficult because they rarely know like even how to talk and play, because playing to them is playing on the phone or online games. So which is a sad fact. But even though if we want to restrict our kids, they feel left out, that they feel not included with other kids. So that's a huge problem that we actually found.
I really love all your Newfoundland stories. I have to say that. Like, so I want to know what this list of board games is. Interestingly, we have a few board games ourselves, but definitely can add more.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
And
So see, one thing is like I want to include the people who, like, there are a good number of people who are also living by themselves,
Mhm.
right?
Who are single,
Who are
yeah.
single, living by themselves, and yes, it's good to talk about the board games and what are the things that you could do as a family, but how, how for people who are living single, the doing things with time intentionally, it also becomes a challenge. Just I wanted to acknowledge that as well, because we are finding many of the people who we work with, especially who are uh, by themselves, living by themselves, they find some of them, they find it very challenging to to find something that is engaging and meaningful other than the screens.
So Mithika, can you give us ideas? What can we do, like to replace screens? Are there anything else that we can?
Sure, sure. So first of all, like I said, before you even start the journey, know your why. So your why would enlist X, Y, or Z, and you ask any person, they will have their likes, dislikes, hobbies, or I've always wanted to do this. So go to your bucket list and find something that works for you. It's going to be different from what works for me or what works for Arjun or what works for Shobha, for sure. Right. So what is that bucket list, and is that financially viable? Is that practically viable? What are of those that are viable at this point? And you start with that. Okay. As far as people who are living on their own or who are retired, yes, definitely it's a phase of life we all go through at some point or the other, right? And we crave that sense of community. So we have to delineate, hey, these are the X, Y, and Z app that give me a sense of community. But there are other 10 or 15 apps that are just junk sitting on my phone, and sometimes I waste my time on. So you have to pick your battles. That would be my number one advice. Yes, stay connected. And nothing has proven the importance of connection as much as COVID-19 has. So no doubt about it. Connection is important. Okay. So what can we do to have connections but have mindful use of those connections? So okay, you are connected to the family group. The family group may be in a different time zone. Do you need to be up at 4 in the morning to look at it? Do you have to open your WhatsApp when you go up to do a restroom break in the middle of the night? Okay. So, how do we set those boundaries? Addiction work, by and large, is about setting those boundaries. This is what I'm comfortable doing a lot of introspection. Like, this is where I'm erring, and we are all a little lazy. Like, it's so easy to just give in, and you need to have very simple things, very small targets to go for first, and then take it from there. So, what can people do in their time? It could, uh, ideas are infinite, right? What did you do 10 years ago when you didn't have all of these other options to do? Take up a hobby, learn a new language, learn something new. That I'm a learning person, so clearly I'm biased towards that. But if it is doing some outdoor time, yes, you can keep your phone on you, but it doesn't have to be on, or you don't need to be watching something or even playing it. It should be only there for security. How much of pockets of mindfulness are you scheduling in your day? Right. If I go out for a walk, it's so easy to just listen to something, but it's much more difficult to notice the trees, notice the birds. Do what works for you, what works for your groove, and what makes you more um, pleasantly tired at the end of the day and gives you good sleep.
So basically, having boundaries, having a why, and working with where you are and setting reasonable goals, like, and doing it gradually.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
very
this
very
is
simple goals. It does
very,
not have
yeah.
to be complex at all.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a very important topic that we are talking about. I find, because this is something that it connects with all other aspects of our overall health, the social, the psychological, even to the extent like a financial, like how we spend our time. Um, yeah, and uh, I'm
Yeah.
so glad that we did it, because we have most of the time we're talking about all the chronic diseases, but how we use our time
Mhm.
and the technology usage also affects our overall well-being.
So let's say, Mithika, we find ourselves with the technology overuse, or so how do we help ourselves, or like how do you help people if they find themselves in this situation? Like, is there any help or resources that they can actually contact you for?
Yeah, so happy to help in any way that I can. Go ahead and check out my website. It's just my first name, last name.com, mitikakanabar.com. And what I've been recently doing, and it's just like my brand new baby, is that helping people with like a screen freedom challenge. So we did the first challenge, we had very good feedback. So it's just a kind of a social experiment of how we can modulate our time. So that's where I give you challenges, I give you some pro tips every day, and help you cut down your screen time.
That's
That's wonderful, Mithika. So anybody can join the challenge. Is it like any time, or are you doing um, like on a set times
So
challenge?
it's generally a 2-week challenge.
Okay.
I'm enrolling for the next batch. It would be like within the next week or 10 days, we will do the next 2-week challenge. But we are looking to do at least 2 or 3 more challenges, and see how the reception is, how we can adapt to a diverse audience as to what our
Wonderful.
suggestions
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, so are you? So we
so,
we shared that on our Gift of Health
yeah.
page, and
So
all our viewers can join, participate in the Screen Freedom Challenge. It's
yeah. So there is a Google form posted in the chat, like where you can. So the form is self-explanatory, where it is asking information. And for people who are interested to join this challenge, I'm very excited to join this challenge.
Yeah, I see
Like,
a comment
You're most
from
welcome.
Dr. Anita Reddy. Like she said, love the program with Dr. Mitika, and it has helped me decrease 30% of screen time. Loved it, and it has freed so much of time to go back to my hobbies. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Anita.
yeah. So for people who are interested, so we have the form posted here.
Okay.
So feel free to use that form, and yeah, you never know like what are all the wonderful things that you're going to learn and decrease your screen time too.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, if you could, 30% less screen time means 30% more time to do the
Things we
stuff.
love.
Yeah.
Like we always think, oh, I don't have time for this, or I don't have time. Like it's a very simple excuse we give.
Yeah.
Like whenever anything important or anything like anybody describes it, oh, I don't have time. You see, like I'm such a busy person, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, but when we cut down the usage of Netflix or YouTube or social media, then suddenly there is so much time that comes up.
That is so true. So one of the most scary things I did was to completely wash up my YouTube history, like, and disable any new history. I have to keep doing it. YouTube is smart. It keeps turning on and disable autoplay.
Hmm. Yeah, I
What
disabled
Uh,
I
what is
disabled
the
autoplay
autoplay?
long time ago. Yeah.
tracking.
Yeah.
If you open YouTube, the first page should be like totally irrelevant suggestions for you. That's kind of half the battle. So yeah, and thank you for posting the Google form. So this is more like for people who want to just have a little bit more work-life balance, that the screen freedom challenges for like severe addiction, or the reality of substance use addiction. I'd like to throw a plug in, is that there are immense number of resources now available. A lot of information is just online on NIDA and NIAAA websites. I have seen so much progress across the globe with my time at ISAM. So many places are providing resources for people for addiction care, whether it is you go to a facility and do some rehab, but coming out and then living your life in a new way using your coping skills. Lot of help is available. Please reach out. Okay, look at NIAAA, look at SAMHSA, look at the CDC website, Google what is available in your area. And we have a whole network, international network of dedicated professionals for people suffering from substance use disorders, who are just committed to helping you.
Wonderful, Mithika. That is so helpful. And we really love the time we had with you. Thank you for the wonderful time, and also like educating us about addiction at the same time. Like this was so useful because
Yep.
and also like bringing the awareness to it, because this is something like we are not even aware. So we think, okay, we don't have any a problem. We always think about substances, but rarely do we think about like how much we are hooked to our technology and
And using it in a way that it is serving us, right?
yes,
So it's beautiful. Thank you so much for this timely conversation, Mitika. We really loved it, and thank you all for joining us, and we will see you
next
yeah,
Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
Thank you very much.
So